Hundreds of National Guard troops expected to be deployed to Portland as early as Thursday. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Brandon Kamerman. Kendall Bartley is off. Over the weekend, the Trump administration ordered 200 troops to be deployed for what the White House says is to prevent damage to the city's immigrations and customs enforcement building. The move was quickly met by criticism from local leaders and a lawsuit from the state's Attorney General. The Attorney General Dan Rayfield filed that lawsuit yesterday. The suit hopes to bring a temporary restraining order against the deployment, claiming the federal government has overstepped its bounds. The state of California won a similar lawsuit earlier this month following the Guard's deployment in Los Angeles. That deployment to LA was another example of the state leaders not asking for federal assistance.
The precedent is it's setting is normalizing troops on U.S. soil, sending help that has not been requested, that's actually been rejected, creating a kind of chasm between federal and state government. Typically, it's been something left to the states.
President Trump's push to send troops into Portland goes against most historical precedent for federal troops on U.S. soil. Now, a federal act from 1878 called the Posse Comitatus Act limits federal troops from enforcing local laws against civilians. Now, there have been instances of federalizing troops domestically. For example, in the 1960s, National Guard troops were sent to facilitate desegregation and protect those participating in civil rights marches. Political science expert Chandler James says with President Trump's push to send federal troops into Portland and the state's motion for a temporary restraining order to block that deployment, it could all come down to the U.S. Constitution.
The right to free speech, right to assemble are constitutional rights. And so as long as Americans are peacefully engaging in those rights, I don't know if there's ever a time for presidents to use the military to quash protests. When people go from protest to violence, domestic law officers have been able to use existing laws to maintain order.
James says the battle between Trump and the state of Oregon is something that must be resolved in the courts. The Oregon National Guard did confirm that they received a notice of activation yesterday through a memorandum from Governor Kotek's office from the Secretary of Defense, calling for the federal activation of 200 service members. The Guard said in a statement to our newsroom, the 200 service members called to federal duty will be taking orders from U.S. Northcom and not from our National Guard chain of command. All of our other service members who are not part of the 200 will continue to follow orders from our Adjutant General and the Governor. The Oregon National Guard says National Guard personnel coming in from other states is possible, but unlikely. Now, with the city of Portland and the state of Oregon in the national spotlight, we asked local protesters what it means for their efforts moving forward, especially if similar deployments happen in Eugene.
If the National Guard were to come to Eugene, I genuinely think at first people would be too scared to go out and actually protest. Their goal should be de-escalation and not escalation. And we've seen this happen, throughout like the Black Lives Matter movement and everything like that. We've seen this happen even dating as far back as Stonewall. We've seen this happen.
Others we spoke with are encouraging people to not back down, saying that staying inside would do greater harm than being active in the streets.
The more scary thing in the long run is doing nothing. That these tactics rely on people demobilizing. The threats to send the military into Portland and Oregon and claiming that Portland is a war zone and things like this. These are, scary, obviously, for the people there.
Protesters tell us they will continue their weekly anti-ICE protests in front of the Eugene Federal Building. Those typically take place on Tuesdays. Well, today, on top of fighting the Trump administration on National Guard troops in Portland, Governor Kotek and state lawmakers also passed the controversial transportation bill to fund ODOT. Salem Bureau reporter Vasily Varlamos joining us now after following this special session from start to finish. It lasted a lot longer than a lot of us anticipated. Vasily, there was a lot of emotion after the bill's passage.
Yes, ODOT workers facing layoffs, Democratic leaders and advocates all celebrated when the results came in. Meanwhile, Republicans spent the morning signaling that this fight is not over.
House Bill 3991A, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
The sound of the gavel echoes the sound of relief for ODOT workers.
I'm just so looking forward to being able to do my job and not have this looming over me and to know that it's going to be okay.
The Oregon Senate passing Governor Kotek's transportation bill Monday, ending fears from workers facing layoffs and months of tense debate. After a 4-week delay to give more time to Senator Chris Gorsuch to recover from health issues, the bill passed along party lines. While every Democrat supported the bill, saying it provided the necessary funding to fix roads and prevent job loss at ODOT, some called the process imperfect, pointing to the unpredictability and the difficulty it took to get to this point.
Oregonians could care less for the finger pointing and the partisan jabs. They want real solutions and accountability. They want us to work together, to act to save the jobs that our economy depends on.
Almost every Republican senator spoke against the bill, calling it unaffordable and pointing to the large amount of written public opposition. Senate Republican leader Bruce Starr doubled down on the idea that Republicans would try to force a public vote through a referendum.
What is the governor and the Senate Democrats afraid of? I'll tell you what they're afraid of. They're afraid of Oregonians saying no to this massive tax increase.
In order to call a referendum, Republicans and advocates must gather over 78,000 signatures 90 days after sine die, which will be on Wednesday, and have them verified by the Secretary of State. After that, the bill would go to the November 2026 ballot.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will not be the end of this conversation, I guarantee you.
Now, without a referendum, that 6-cent increase to the state's gas tax, along with various other increases to vehicle fees, would go into effect 91 days after Wednesday, which would be December 31st. Live in Salem, Vasily Varlamos, K2 News.
All right, thank you, Vasily. Take a live look now over Eugene, where we did see some soggy skies throughout the day, a little bit of the return of fall weather. Just how long will that last? Well, we turned to Alan Matthews for that. Yeah, we got to see the rain. It did feel like fall.
Yeah, it was a very fall-like day. Cool temperatures today. We saw that rain. Kind of getting a little bit of a break ahead of tonight, but this is just rain round one. I think we'll see some better totals with round two. Let's show you what's going on right now, though. As we head out the door, 61 degrees in Eugene. And again, we are still seeing some light showers across the area. Southeast wind at 11 and our humidity level at 83%. As we look at the radar satellite, you can see those showers making their way across the area. A lot of light rainfall along I-5. It looks like we're seeing some heavier showers up around the Corvallis area right now. We're basically going to be looking at rainfall again tonight and into tomorrow. Actually, that rainfall ending tonight, but we will see rain tomorrow. Now, we do have that air quality alert in effect, and this is covering most of Lane County, getting some of that smoke from southern Oregon, and that's going to run until Tuesday evening. And as far as your weather headlines are concerned, rain will be likely Tuesday and Wednesday with some breezy conditions as well. Now, temperatures will remain below average, and we'll be looking for some scattered showers on Thursday. We'll get a break from the rain toward the end of the week, but temperatures really not changing that much. All your weather details coming up in just a bit.
All right, thank you, Alan. Well, we are 2 days removed from Oregon's thrilling double overtime win over Penn State, another massive victory of the Dan Lanning era. And we are joined by KVAL Sports Director Aaron Slindy. You were in Happy Valley experiencing the energy and excitement. Now, Aaron, I got to tell you, I was also on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I was doing the honor flight. And that night, obviously 60 local veterans, the crowd in the lobby of this Washington, D.C. hotel watching the game was incredible. It was all green and yellow.
I know. I mean, that's no surprise because I know Duck fans at the beginning of the season, this was the game that we were talking about. And now finally this past week, we're finally able to talk about it, and the players, they They definitely said they did everything they said they were going to do, which was go to the environment, not get distracted by all of the outside noise. You can see here the whiteout, the pom-poms in the student section. I was shooting right in front of them for a lot of that right here, and you could just see the amount of electricity from the fans was absolutely insane. Of course, this was the game-winning play right here, the interception by Dylan Thieneman, really to win it. In this game, they kind of knew it would all come down to one play. It was really awesome to see the #1 safety in the transfer portal this past season, a game changer. Dan Lanning said this guy would be, and he was. Oregon, Eugene native Bryce Betcher right there. The Oregon fans all the way up in that top section.
Hey, there's a couple green. There's
Dan
Lanning, of course.
Absolutely thrilled and excited for his team to get this win. Again, too, this one would come down to overtime. A lot of big plays in this one, and it was really exciting just to be there. What a roller coaster, right? Because no team really had the momentum heading into halftime. Both tied 3-3, offense not really going. Oregon able to come out in the third quarter, produce some offense, but then
Penn State comes
Penn
back.
State responding with 2 scores right away, and then overtime, Ducks able to get it done.
Just a classic game. I have to ask you, with you being there, you know, there was so much talk leading up to it of the whiteout and the intimidation factor, and how much would that play into it? From your experience, you were on that was your video that you were shooting. What was it like for you? I mean, you didn't have to compete in a football game and win a football game, but just being there in that presence, what was that like?
Yeah, I definitely think the stadium, it is loud. I think Autzen, I think a lot of people who were there, Oregon fans were like, Autzen's louder. I think both stadiums, I think loud is loud, but I think the difference is that Oregon didn't let it affect them. You think of all of the teams that have come into Autzen Stadium in big games. It's really hard to win in Autzen Stadium because it is so loud. You see a lot of teams that have false starts. I think Oregon, a big thing that they did was not let that affect them. Even though it was extremely loud, there were a lot of fans. Even when Penn State was down 2 scores, no one left. Everyone stayed in their seat waiting to see what that would come down to. And I mean, if anyone did leave, you know, I'm sad that they left because it ended up being an amazing game.
What a game,
but
yeah.
I definitely think that Oregon made it through the toughest environment of the year. I think looking at the rest of their schedule, they've got Iowa and they've got Washington, 2 more tough environments. But I think if they're able to get through a Penn State whiteout, I think that gives them a lot more confidence now heading into the next part of their schedule.
Was this the most exciting Oregon game you've covered?
I mean, it's definitely the biggest. It's the biggest crowd that Oregon has ever competed in front of. Even with the construction going on at Beaver Stadium, still more than 111,000 fans there for one of the biggest games of the year. Potentially could be seeing Penn State again in the Big Ten Championship. They do have to play Ohio State, as well as I think we got another big game, Brandon, coming up right here on KVAL in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks. Oregon, #2 Oregon will host #8 Indiana, who completely, absolutely shocked Illinois a little bit ago, earlier on in the Big Ten season. It's going to be a great game, and it's going to be right here on KVAL, so make sure that you tune in.
We'll definitely lead up to that, and if you haven't been following us on social media, Erin and her team provide so much content, so go ahead and scan that QR code. That's going to take you to all of our social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook. You have been obviously active, and you can see a lot of what you were able to capture both before the game, leading up to it, and then afterwards.
Yeah, and of course, we're going to continue head-up coverage. Even the Oregon's on the bye this week, still a lot of commotion going around about this team, and definitely leading into another big game coming up next week, so yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Well, thanks for joining us, Erin, to talk about that. We'll have more coming up at 6. Plus